How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're back with another rookie review, this time talking about the number 2 overall pick, Brandon Miller, and what he did in his rookie season. If you're liking these vids, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, comment. All that helps so much. And if you really like the videos, consider becoming a member to the channel. That's a new feature that I have, where members can vote on, what kind of content I make and have some early access and some other perks to be decided later. But anyways, y'all are the best. Let's talk about B. Millie. And Brandon Miller is a ridiculous shot maker. That was the one thing that, one of the things that everyone was kind of certain of coming out, and it very much translated. 6'8", 6'9", with 37% on high volume and a bunch of different types of shots. Like, he shoots off the ball, he shoots on ball, he can do a little dribble handoff into a forward momentum pull-up three. Like, that's not an easy shot for a 6'8", 6'9" guy, and Brandon Miller made it look routine pretty quickly into his rookie year. Here he is isolating against Paul George, who he is oft compared to. I don't think that's a particularly accurate comparison, but some of the mannerisms are, similar. Beautiful, deep snatch back, multiple feet beyond the line. Brandon Miller cashing that shot. His ability to create shots for himself off the dribble with his height and his quick high release, as well as get shots off of the move, where here it's just like early offense, a little DHO flip in transition. He's the trailer, doesn't need any time to set, a little bit of airspace, but that's all Miller needs, right? And because he can shoot from such a deep range, defenses have to play him way tighter than they normally play. And if you go under Brandon Miller on a handoff, he's going to punish you already, as all great shooters do and will. You really just can't be doing that. And he can sprint off of screens and whip around them. And I love how the Hornets would throw him on these crackback actions here, getting Miller back moving to his left. Like, he can sprint off movement to his right, sprint off movement to his left. He really is a crazy dynamic shot maker. Again, too much space, going against Giannis right here. He catches the ball kind of like a weird angle over his right shoulder, right? Simple left-right 1-2. Giannis is there contesting, but Miller doesn't care, right? His release can be a little lower from farther out. That's a very common thing. Trey, Steph, Maxey, all the elite deep range shooters tend to will lower their releases a little to get more power on these shots. And yep, Miller just knocks it in over Giannis, who is not an easy defender to shoot over by any means. And his shooting is so dynamic, and Miller has already shown the ability to use his shooting gravity to set himself up as a cutter. He's a phenomenal off-ball scorer. That to me is Miller's best trait and the best thing to bank on moving forward. Defense here is Alec Burks. Alec Burks is top blocking Miller, right? Trying to deny his ability to come off of this pin down and work into pistol action or whatever they're going to do. So Miller simply cuts back door, gets wide open, finishes strong through contact. It's basic stuff, but his understanding of how to play off of his own scoring gravity is not normal for rookie wings, overall. And Miller, as the season went on, really improved as a mid-range shot maker. And the other super impressive thing to me about Miller's profile is his pacing in the pick and roll and as a driver. Rejects to open up Kelly Oubre. He's reading the play out, step back, wide open mid-range jumper. He's really comfortable countering in the mid-range. And when defenses take away his three-pointer, he can get downhill a little bit, isolating against Jalen Smith. Beautiful spin fade there. His height and the shot-making touch are all really phenomenal. And though he's not the most incredible space creator, as we'll get into, Miller's ability to use screens to get his shots off in the mid-range is a really valuable asset. Great job here. This is a great screen, too, by Nick Richards. Flipping the screen, Miller snakes to the middle to get more space, rises up in traffic, cans it. That's a wide open shot for a shooter the caliber of Miller. Here he's going to isolate against Alex Caruso, throw him off. Yeah, maybe it's an offensive foul, but still, great job creating separation in the fourth quarter against one of the best defenders in the entire NBA. This is what Brandon Miller is really special at, the shot making at his size. Miller does have issues, and I would say some fairly notable ones when we're talking about projecting his ceiling. The slashing, the advantage creation, some of that is my main concerns, and we're going to get into that now, is Miller just doesn't have the burst and explosion to consistently get downhill, and the handle at this point The flashes are great, which we'll get into, but the consistency isn't great. Just runs into Paul George here, can't create any separation, turns the ball over, and he was very inefficient at the rim. I think just around 50% this year, which is not great, especially for a 6'8" player. But Miller really does struggle to create separation on these drives. Gets the handoff here, and you can kind of just see how slow he looks. I think part of it is because he likes to play more methodical, and he can, which is good. But I do think it's also due to his physical limitations. And you can maybe argue he should have passed to the corner there, but just easily blocked by Holmgren here. Miller resorting to like a tough fading floater, not separating from Giddey at all. This was the story for a lot of this season when Miller drove, and I do have some worries about him getting efficient offense against great defenders. Like, yeah, he's a rookie going against Anthony Davis, but the process to me is more of an issue than the result, right? Miller just kind of lackadaisically driving, can't create separation, takes a really bad shot there pretty early in the shot clock. I think there's a lot of that. And of course he played on a bad Hornets team that was getting blown out a lot of the time. So I definitely don't want to over-index on some of the habits we saw from Miller, because they definitely can get better as the team gets better around him. You can see the lack of explosion and burst, can't create any space against Grayson Allen, and resorts to a tough floater, which he can hit those floaters, but Miller is going to have to be really reliant on these floaters. He's going to have to become elite at these shots to really be an efficient interior paint scorer, because Miller just struggles to get all the way to the rim consistently against a set defense in the half court that's playing him really tight. And like I said, these floaters definitely can go in, but these aren't easy shots. Blanketed by Josh Hart right here. Mitchell Robinson's kind of in his area. Brunson stepping up. Miller just not good enough going all the way downhill, drawing fouls, etc., to efficiently score in the paint. And that's just such an important trait to be a star. And to me, again, one of the big differences with the Paul George comparison is that George was always a monster athlete, elite slasher, and that's just not who Miller is, and never really was. Again, easily blocked here. He has a lot of the same rookie problems like we talked about with Scoot and everyone else, where he picks the ball up early and he'll just not take good shots, and the decision making on these drives can be really questionable. And I think those things can definitely get ironed out with time. But the overall physical limitations for him are a lot more significant than some of the other top guys in this class, in my opinion at least. Very reliant, as we said, on these slow play drives. Miller has a big gap here because Collins has to respect his jumper. He's an elite shooting threat, as we already discussed, right? So he gets an easy drive. And I think how effective Miller can get at attacking and beating closeouts is also going to be an important thing to monitor, where he doesn't pass to an open Martin right here. He just kind of tries a tough scoop shot around Lauri Markkanen, which doesn't end up working. So it's a lot of the physical limitations and the driving process limitations. And it's not like he's a horrible athlete or anything. And like I said, when the handle works, Miller splits the pick and roll here against Embiid, elevates off of 1 foot. Yeah, this is wide open, but still, we see Miller's ability to explode and create dunks in the half court. He has some wild posters at times where Miller's able to just use his runway and length, and it's not as much he's a sudden explosive leaper. He very much needs a runway to get up like this, but when he has that runway, when he can really load up and explode off of 2 feet, he can dunk over people. Yes, this is Bruno Fernando, but it's still impressive to see Miller using his pacing as a pick and roll player. Again, sets up this screen to the baseline, rejects middle. He's not the most dynamic creator with his handle, but he is really excellent with a ball screen. And that was maybe my favorite underrated trait of his coming out that I feel people didn't give him enough credit for, is how good of a screen manipulator Miller is. And when he can win with his handle, it looks really good. The flashes are quite enticing. You pretty rarely saw it against quality defenders. Jay Crowder's not really doing much at this stage, but great job changing directions smoothly. His flexibility on this drive was great. Gets all the way to the rim, finishes tough, but again, we see he has to take a very contested finish because he's not very explosive. He's fading away Brooks right in his face, and big credit to Miller for finishing a shot like that, but it is really difficult to live on those kind of shots for any player, not just for Miller, a rookie or a player of his type. Would love to see him incorporate more late long steps and deceleration. You see Miller kind of slowing down at the end of his drive to let Trey Murphy fly by so he can get open for the floater. I really love that take, and I'd love to see Brandon Miller do more of this deceleration floater stuff as we go forward. And this was a really nice drive, and I love the decisiveness attacking. I love the flexibility. Again, we can see he's just not that explosive, and he can't get that much separation from Jabari Walker. But if Miller can really lean into this decisiveness, taking advantage of his shooting gravity, right? Jabari Walker has to play him high on the floor because Miller will shoot over him. And this flexibility is phenomenal. Miller gets his torso like almost parallel, his shoulder well below Walker, and that allows him to create an advantage even when he doesn't have like the explosion. And this is still a tough shot, right? Left-handed, scoop over Walker. Not an easy finish by any means, but one that Miller is capable of creating and getting to. And I really do want to see if he can continue to be this kind of guy where he uses his like pace, and his best handling move is definitely this hang dribble where he'll like open defenses up, gets right by him. And Thompson here hops in the lane, ends up again missing a shot with his left hand because it's kind of a tough contested look. But I think the process here is more important to me. I will say I wish he was a little bit more consistent of like a drive and kick passer, where you can see like Nick Smith is wide open in the corner here. There's been a couple plays here where Nick Smith or other guys have been pretty wide open on the weak side, and Miller was just unable to hit them. We're going to talk a little bit about his passing in a bit, but I do think that's another current kind of blind spot for him, is passing out of the drives. He's a much better just like straight pick and roll passer than he is in terms of passing out of his own scoring chances. And like I said, with the closeout attacking, this is a great contested finish. Love Miller going immediately. He's going to get these looks all day. Defenses have to sell out his shot, so he's going to get chances to improve, and I buy Miller being able to improve as a closeout attacker. He's going to get so many reps, and he clearly is very talented in terms of his pacing and stuff on the ball, and we're going to talk about the passing a little bit right now. I don't think Miller's like a point guard level player, right? But he is a really nice secondary passer for a wing, especially one of his shot making. Again, we see him setting up this screen with the behind the back, goes baseline. He's not rushing. He's waiting for Richards to roll into a spot, jump pass for a wide open dunk. It's nothing insanely high level, but for a 6'8" shot making sniper rookie wing, this kind of secondary passing as an add-on is really nice to have. The fact that you can trust Miller to make some basic live dribble reads out of the pick and roll. You know, he's hitting his teammates when they move into open windows. He's doing everything you want him to do, and this is a really nice play that I want to see more of, right? Attacking closeouts, making quick decisions, late shot clock, doesn't force up a bad shot, no looks it down to PJ. Look at him staring at Martin, staring at the wing. The Knicks defense doesn't react in time. PJ Washington gets a fairly open shot there. That's a really impressive play off the ball by Miller. So, like, the flashes and the feel for him really are enticing. And there is a pretty strong foundation here, in my opinion, to work off of. And this is a play where you see some of the good and some of the bad, right? Miller can't separate it all from Hendricks. He loses his handle when Laurie digs, but he's able to still salvage this play and pick out Nick Richards wide open under the basket. Like, he has enough vision. Like, he's not creating passing windows like Trae Young or Halliburton or Luka or Jokic or whoever, but he is really solid at capitalizing off of help and like the double teams and stuff, at least on interior passes. Like I said, I think the exterior passes are a bit more of a weakness for him at this point, but he is pretty comfortable hitting these. Oh my God, left-handed live dribble. That was disgusting. Miller is really comfortable with his offhand. The success rate isn't always perfect, but the fact that he's willing to make these plays with his left hand, I think is really encouraging. Hesitation move, again, he doesn't have to do that much as a creator because defenses sell out to his jumper, and then just a beautiful left-handed whip pass. It's not as much like crazy high-level vision as it is just executing basic stuff with really impressive skill, and I think that's important. Again, just a very simple play here. Miller's patient, waits for Richards to roll behind Drummond, throws up a lob to only where Richards can get it in. That is a beautiful catch. This has been a nice showing for Nick Richards as well. Have yourself a video, Nick Richards. He's an interesting little center. You know, he can screen, he can lob, he can protect the rim a little bit. Solid little role player for the Hornets going forward. Again, empty side pick and roll, but like we said, the decision making is not perfect. The consistency isn't totally there. Probably should have, if he had a better handler, right, can hold it in traffic, put more pressure on the defense instead of just falling for the bait right here. D'Angelo is very easily able to dig and bait him into a pass right there. That's very much a rookie mistake, right? Not something that a lot of older players do. And like I said, I think when he's like probing, the vision can be spotty. When Miller is doing like a a secondary pick and roll on the weak side, he's great. But when he has to initiate actions from the top of the key as a more of a primary, I do think he can struggle. Like, he's not able to find Richards sitting pretty wide open here in the middle of the floor, ends up turning the ball over. So the playmaking for Miller to me is definitely good, but I don't think it's like special. And overall, I think offensively, he's a very, very talented player with maybe some ceiling limitations. Defensively was kind of a mess, but he's a rookie and the Hornets were a terrible team. He is a solid off-ball defender. Like, Miller has enough instincts and awareness to like be in good spots and to be early here covering up this lob and ends up deflecting it in midair, getting a deflection. And, I believe it ended up going the other way there. This is a really nice play by Miller where he uses his length to deflect this pass. He is really good covering passing lanes with his length. Like, the reaction time is quick. He can use his long arms and those quick reflexes to create turnovers and to make stuff happen on the defensive end. Again, we see Miller as a low man here, stealing the pass to the corner. Like, there is definitely some off-ball defensive stuff to be excited about. Like, he can make plays with his length. He doesn't always look completely lost or anything on that side of the floor. Really good job here noticing that Embiid just took Nick Richards' lunch here, right? Or, Richards way overplayed it. Miller sinks down, steals the ball away from Embiid before he can get a play going. That's really good awareness and playmaking and help responsibilities overall from the rookie. As a whole, the off-ball defense is a bit of an adventure, as it is for most rookies, but he does show the ability to like make plays and to function as a member of a team defense here. Like, Kyrie ends up scoring and getting an and one, but they're asking a lot out of Miller here. He's the initial tagger on this roll, forces a pass out. He completes the X out, right? Melo gets the first pass, he gets the second pass, and closing out to Kyrie and contesting him is a really tough ask for a 6'8 wing, let alone a rookie, right? So I think plays like that overall were positive in terms of Miller's recognition and ability to function within a defensive system. I wish he provided more resistance, and I think part of the physical limitations show up on defense in this way, where it looks like Miller is reading the play and knows where he's supposed to be, but just doesn't have the pop or explosion or strength to really contest a lot of these plays, which I do think is somewhat concerning. Miller has a defensive floor because of the size, but the strength and stuff certainly is concerning, just like it is on offense. And the screen navigation is pretty rough, as it tends to be for most taller players, especially rookies. Like, can't get off Gary Payton. It's probably a moving screen, honestly. Close out to Clay. Ends up getting scored on. Yes, it's Klay Thompson. Don't want to freak out over that. But definitely noticed that was a consistent issue while watching his tape from his rookie year. Falling asleep on these off-ball actions. Like, he definitely was prone to ball watching and losing attentiveness. Very common rookie mistakes, especially on bad teams. To me, nothing to freak out about for the long term. This stuff to me is more concerning. His closeout defense, some of the abilities changing directions, sliding to cut off drives. Dylan Brooks so easily able to just power through him, get to the rim. Miller loves that like hands up defense that Karl Towns, like I always associate with Karl Anthony Towns. Not a good thing, by the way. It's not good to just hands up passive defense, especially when you have the size and length to contest. And this was good though. He will show the ability to stick and get around screens here. Like I said, good job changing directions here. And when he's going up against like slower players, he definitely can stick with them. Like you're never going to want Miller being your primary point of attack defender, but he can hang a little bit against slower players. But again, just like pushed back by a veteran and Gallinari, you can see how slow Gallo is, but Miller just doesn't have the foot placement. Like he ends up getting like his right foot off the ground, you can see. Like I'm not really sure what he's trying to do in terms of footwork here. There's a lot of technical stuff in terms of positioning his feet and positioning his hands that's going to need refinement as well, but a lot of times that stuff is going to come with age. Good job there, though, getting an initial stop on Jalen, but gets beat here by Pritchard. Like, a lot of mixed results on defense. It was a very typical rookie season to me. There wasn't much out of the ordinary here in terms of how Miller performed. It was kind of how I expected. I didn't really think of him as a great defensive prospect coming out because of some of the physical limitations. And like I said, changing directions, closeouts can be a bit of a struggle here. Definitely when teams force him to X out and change ground, he can read those plays, right? He can make those plays, but he's not necessarily the best at actually capitalizing and impacting those plays in a big way just because of some of the physical limitations. And of course, on the ball, like, he's going to need to get stronger. He's going to get pushed back by, explosive wings like Karis LeVert. Rookie stuff, right? Nothing so concerning. Great job here, though, blocking Paul George's three. I love this closeout here. Sprints into closing with his left hand, stops on a dime, and is able to block his pull-up. Really impressive stuff. Just great play recognition. Great job timing his run and approach there. Overall, just very good stuff. And another good rep here by Miller where he's able to rip OG Anunoby, changing directions here. Again, we see him opening up, getting low, flipping his hip. So just like the offensive end, there are enough flashes of competence in terms of guarding the ball, in terms of guarding off the ball, that I think you can confidently project him to be a reasonably solid defender going forward. Like, this is a really great closeout. Dante ends up just making a tough shot, but he does a good job stunting at Jericho Sims, forcing a pass, changing directions here. And again, Dante made a really difficult shot, but I think overall the process there from Miller is positive. And I really do want that to be the takeaway from most of this stuff in terms of like the rookie recaps is we're looking at process, we're looking at how players get to their spots, how they operate on the court, and not as much like, did the shot that their opponent took go in? Like, he's getting fooled by Luka on the weak side. Brandon Miller to me is more of a high floor guy than a true high ceiling superstar. And maybe that's harsh to say after his rookie year, but I think there's enough, physical and mental limitations that I see Miller as more of like a number 2 on a great team. He really does remind me of like post-prime Chris Middleton to some extent in terms of the incredible shot making, enough secondary passing, but always some kind of creating limitations. And I think because of that, Miller's ceiling might not be as high as an Amen or an Asar, or, a Scoot or certain guys like that in this class, but I do think he's going to be a very nice player for a long time. I really hope LaMelo can get healthy again because I think he and Miller have the potential to be such a great synergistic pairing, right? LaMelo is so good at playmaking and getting downhill, and Miller can totally eat off of that. And I think Miller has enough playmaking chops to take advantage of LaMelo's on-ball stuff. So really excited to see how Miller can develop this coming season and progress on his shortcomings and how high his ceiling ends up being. But let me know what you think about Miller and how you're feeling about him going forward.